All right, we are looking at a lesson on growing patterns. And this first part we did in class as groups, but I'm going to go through it with you. So for the first one, we're just analyzing these patterns, and then it asks us to draw the figure in the next figure in the set. So we're looking at size 1 first here, and we're just going to count the blocks. So we start with 3 blocks. For size 2, if you count them, we end up with 6. For size 3, if we count them, we end up with 9. So we need to go ahead and figure out what's going to happen with size 4. Well, with size 4, we're going to end up with 2 blocks, and then we've got that. It's going to go down here, and then it's going to, let's see, we're adding 3, so 8, 9, 10, and I'm going to run out of room, 11 and 12. Okay, so we end up with 12 in size 4. For size 5, we're going to add 3 to our previous one, which was 15. And then we just got to continue that pattern to figure out what size 10 is. So let's do that. So for 6, we're going to add 15. So I'm just going to make a little table here. So we end up with 18. For size 7, we add 3 to that, which gives us 21. 8 gives us 24. 9 gives us 27. And 10 gives us 30. And then it just asks us to describe the pattern in words. Well, for our pattern in words, we're going to start with how many blocks we had in the first size. So we're going to start with 3. And we're going to add 3 every time. All right, let's look at Luke's pattern. So we're going to do the same thing again. All right, back to this. So we're going to count our blocks. So for size 1, we have 5. Size 2, we have 11. Size 3, we have 17. So we need to draw our figure and come up with the number of blocks for each. So you can see here that we had 3 growing across here. We had 5 going across here. We have 7 going across here. So we're going to have 9 going across for size 4. So I'm going to try to draw this. I'm just going to draw this, blow this up so I have a little more room. So we have 9 blocks, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then on the top, we just kind of fill in. So we're going to have 7 going across the top and 7 going across the bottom. And then we're just going to add what's going on here, which is we're going up by 6 each time. So that means the number of blocks we have for size 4 is going to be 17 plus 6, which is going to give us 23 blocks. To get size 5, again, we'll add that 6 again, which gives us 29. And then we're just going to continue this pattern to get to size 10. So I'm just going to start my chart again with size 6. So for size 6, we're going to add 6 to 29, which is going to give us 35. And then we're going to do 7. So 7, we're going to take 35 plus 6, which gives us 41. For 8, 41 plus 6 gives us 47. 9, we're going to take 47 plus 6, which gives us 53. So 10 will actually be 53 plus 6, which is 59. And now we're going to describe our pattern again. So we start with the total of blocks that we have on our first size. So start with 5, and then we're going to add 6 every time. All right, moving on to Sarah's triangle. Here they want us to count the yellow triangles. So for size 1, we have 1. Size 2, we have 3. Size 3, if we count, we're going to have 9. And this one is going to be much harder for me to draw, so I might skip that part. But let's figure out what's going on here. So if you look, if we would be, adding 2 here and 6 here. But that's not the same amount. So now we can start to look and see what's going on. Could we multiply? Could we divide? And if you look, what we could do instead is multiply by 3, multiply by 3. So that means when I get to size 4, I'm just going to take my previous, which was 9, and multiply it by 3, which means I would end up with 27 yellow triangles. And that's why I'm not drawing it. So when we get to size 5, we do the same thing. So we're going to take 27, and we are going to multiply it by 3. That's going to give us 81 blocks. And then we're going to do just like we did before and make a little chart. And instead of adding, we'll multiply. So for 6, we're going to take 81, multiply it by 3. That's going to give us 243. For size 7, multiply that by 3 again. 8. 9 gives us 6,561. And finally, 10 gives us 19,683. And we need to describe the pattern in words. So this time, we're doing the same thing. We are starting with 1 block, and then we are multiplying by 3. Or multiply the previous by 3. And then it asks the question, how were Lindsay and Luke's block patterns different from Sarah's triangle pattern? Well, if we look back, on Lindsay and Luke's, we were adding each time. But once we got to Sarah's, it changed to multiplying. So Lindsay and Luke's added each time, and Sarah's multiplied. All right. Let's move on and look at our quick notes on here. So now that we have gone through and kind of looked at patterns, let's define the patterns. So the first one that we're going to have is called, oops, went too large there, an arithmetic sequence. Now, an arithmetic sequence is where we add or subtract by the same number each time. And we're just going to label that number that we add or subtract as, we're going to call it D, and that's going to stand for this term, which is the common difference. So the common difference is just what we get when we take a term and we subtract the previous term. So it's just the amount between each of the terms. Now what we're going to do is come up with our what we call a recursive formula. So for recursive formulas, we have to do two things. First thing we need to do is we need to define what our first term would be. And our first term is always going to be what came first in the pattern. So a to the first is our first term. And then we're going to come up with a general formula, which is a to the n. And n is whatever the term number is. And that is going to be a to the n minus 1. So basically it's taking your previous term and adding your difference. Okay, so that's our first one. That's an arithmetic sequence. Next is a geometric sequence. So with the arithmetic, we were adding or subtracting. With geometric, we're going to multiply or divide by the same number. And that is going to be represented with R. And that is because we call this, instead of a common difference, it's going to be a common ratio. To get the common ratio, we are going to take a term, and this time we're going to divide it by the previous term. So for example, if I had 4, 12, and then 36, I could take these two terms and do 12 divided by 4, that gives me 3, or 36 divided by 12, which would also give me 3. And that would be my common ratio. And then for the recursive formula, very similar. So we still have to define our first term. And then our formula this time is going to be the previous term, which is n minus 1, times our common ratio, which is R. All right, let's kind of apply those formulas down here on the check your understanding. So for this first one, it says we want to create a sequence for the number of blocks used to create each of the figures shown. Give the first 5 terms. All right, so let's count our blocks. So for the first one, we've got 1. The second one, we have 5 on the bottom and 1 on top, so that's 6. The third one, we have 11. So let's see if we can get a common difference here. So 6 minus 1, that's going to give us 5. 11 minus 6 also gives us 5. So that tells us that we're going to have it going up by 5 each time. So our first 5 terms, we have 1, 6, 11. So we're going to add 6 again, which gives us, not 6, add 5, That gives us 16 and then 21. And then it asks us for part B, is this arithmetic, geometric, or neither? Well, it's going to be arithmetic because it has a common difference of 5. And I already kind of identified that, so the common difference is, of course, 5. And then our recursive formula, remember the first thing we need to do is define the first term. So our first term is going to equal 1 because it only has 1 block. Our recursive formula is going to be a to the n minus 1 because it's always going to be the previous term plus your common difference, or minus that if it's negative. And that is our answer. Let's look at number 2 here. It says use the recursive formula to generate the first 5 terms of the sequence it describes. All right, so we're starting with 8. That's our first term. And you can see right here, we're going to be subtracting 3 each time. So 8 minus 3 gives me 5. 5 minus 3 gives me 2. 2 minus 3 is a negative 1. And negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. All right, for number 3, it says, identify whether each of the following sequences is arithmetic, geometric, or neither. Give the common value or the value of the common difference for each arithmetic or the common ratio for each geometric. All right, so let's look at what is happening here. So let's see if I can come up with a common difference or a common ratio. So if I went from negative 3 to 6, so 6 minus a negative 3, that would be a plus 9. Negative 12 minus 6, that's going to give me a negative 18. 24 minus a negative 12 gives me a positive 36. So we definitely don't have a common difference. So it's not arithmetic. So now let's try and see if we have a common ratio. So 6 divided by negative 3, that's going to be a negative 2. Negative 12 divided by 6 is negative 2. 24 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. So this one is definitely going to be geometric. Now, our common ratio is negative 2. Now, it doesn't ask us to do this, but I want us to go ahead and come up with a formula. So remember, we will define our first term, and then a to the n is going to be the previous term, which is a to the n minus 1, times negative 2. And that would be our formula. All right, let's try B. So let's see if we have a common difference first. So this is a plus 2. This is a plus 4. So already we can tell that's not the same. So that's not going to work. So now let's see if we have a common ratio. So I'm going to do 12 divided by 10. That gives me 1.2. 16 divided by 12 gives me 1.3 repeating. So already those don't work. So we don't have a common ratio. We don't have a common difference. So this one is just neither. And just for a little extra practice before you do your assignment, if you want, I'm going to go back and look at the ones we did on the front here, and let's go ahead and come up with a formula for them. So first, if we look at Lindsay's pattern, since we're adding 3 each time, this one is going to be an arithmetic. So we define our first value. Our first term is 3. And then our formula is going to be the previous term plus 3. If we look at Luke's pattern, we're adding 6 each time. So again, it's going to be arithmetic. And we define it by our first term, which is 5 blocks. And then a to the n is a to the n minus 1 plus, not 5, I keep doing that, sorry, 6. And then finally for Sarah's, since we're multiplying, this one is going to be geometric. We start with our first term, which is 1. And then this time we are going to be multiplying by 3. So a to the n minus 1 times 3. Hope this helped, and good luck with your homework.